September 12, 1944. A report arrived at the German High Command so shocking, so unbelievable, that the officers reading it insisted the messenger must have made a mistake. American forces had broken through the German line in Lorraine, moving faster than any Allied unit was supposed to be capable of. The report named the man responsible, General George S. Patton. At first, several German generals dismissed it. They believed it was a temporary penetration, a reckless advance that would soon collapse. But more reports followed. Villages captured, bridges secured, German strongpoints overrun. Patton wasn't advancing. He was storming through Lorraine as if the war were a race and he refused to slow down. What the German High Command said in those critical hours revealed their fear, their miscalculations, and the growing realization that they were facing a commander unlike any other on the Western Front. This is the story of those moments, the panic behind closed doors, and the words spoken when Patton shattered the German defensive network in Lorraine. To understand why the German High Command reacted with such alarm, we have to go back weeks earlier, to late August 1944. The German army was still reeling from the disaster at Falaise. The remnants of several divisions were struggling to retreat toward the German border. Morale was low, equipment was scarce, and the once feared Wehrmacht was now fighting to buy time, not achieve victory. The German commanders believed they had one advantage: the terrain of Lorraine. Rivers, hills, old fortifications, and narrow roads made the region a natural defensive stronghold. Most Allied commanders, especially those cautious by nature, would expect slow progress, heavy resistance, and logistical problems. But Patton was not like other commanders, and the Germans knew it. Many feared him. Some respected him. Most underestimated him. Hitler had given clear instructions for the defense of Lorraine. The region must not fall. It was the gateway to the Saar industrial heartland, the factories and mines still powering the German war machine. Losing Lorraine meant the Allies would have a direct path into Germany itself. To stop this, the Germans chose a commander known for his defensive skills, General Hermann Bauch. A tough, experienced officer, Bauch had built his reputation fighting on the Eastern Front. He believed in flexible defense, counterattacks, and using terrain as a force multiplier. Bauch felt confident. He believed he could stop any Allied thrust, especially one limited by fuel shortages and stretched supply lines. What he didn't know was that Patton had prepared for this moment long before September arrived. He had studied the terrain, predicted German defensive positions, and devised a plan that balanced speed, deception, and overwhelming force. When the first reports reached Bauch's headquarters, they described American reconnaissance units probing German lines. Nothing unusual, no sign of a major offensive. But one detail troubled German intelligence. The Americans seemed unusually aggressive. They pushed deeper than expected, refused to disengage, and even forced small German units to retreat. Bauch ordered his staff to monitor the situation, but assumed it was just Patton's typical forward pressure. 2 days later, September 10th, the tone changed. German officers reported that Patton's armor had begun coordinated attacks along several points in the Moselle River Valley. German defenses were holding, but only barely. The artillery fire was heavier than anticipated. The infantry moved with precision. Even more concerning, the Americans were not behaving like a force hampered by supply shortages. Bauch held a briefing that afternoon with his senior staff. One colonel summarized the situation bluntly. "The Americans are behaving as if fuel is not a constraint. If this continues, they will break through." Bauch dismissed this. The Germans believed they had thoroughly disrupted Allied supply lines after Falaise. Patton couldn't possibly maintain an armored offensive of significant strength. Bauch assured his officers that the attacks were feints, probing actions. Patton testing the defenses. Nothing more. That illusion shattered on September 12th. At 6:30 in the morning, a panicked German battalion commander sent a message saying he was being overrun near a rampart. American tanks, moving with uncharacteristic speed and coordination, had smashed through his frontline positions. When Bauch demanded clarification, the officer's reply chilled the entire room. They are already behind us. Within hours, more reports arrived. Bridges across the Moselle, which German engineers thought they had destroyed in time, were somehow being crossed by American armor. Entire German companies were surrendering rather than fighting encirclement. In one village, civilians reported American tanks appearing from a direction the Germans believed impossible due to the terrain. Balck immediately called his superior, General Heinz Guderian, acting chief of the general staff. Guderian was known for his bluntness, and the phone conversation was documented by a staff officer. When Balck explained the speed of Patton's advance, Guderian paused before saying, "Impossible. Patton should not have the fuel for this." Balck's response was simple. He found it. Guderian ordered Balck to stop the Americans at all costs. Reinforcements would be sent, though few were available. One staff officer later recalled that the room fell silent after the call. Everyone understood what Guderian's tone meant. Patton's breakthrough was not a local problem. It was a strategic crisis. As the morning progressed, German commanders met at a shade-out converted into a temporary headquarters. Maps were spread across the table. Officers pointed to towns already lost, others at risk, and the rapidly expanding American penetration. Balck asked for assessments. The first officer, a major from the intelligence section, spoke reluctantly. "Our forces are exhausted. Many units are under strength. If the Americans continue at this speed, we cannot form a stable defense." Another officer responsible for logistics added, "We lack fuel, our armor cannot maneuver, we cannot counterattack effectively." A third officer attempted to sound optimistic. "Patton's advance is too fast. He will outrun his supplies. If we can hold for 48 hours, he will stall." Balck agreed, at least publicly. But privately, he was becoming increasingly concerned. He had fought the Soviets for years, and he recognized the signs of an enemy commander who sensed weakness and was exploiting it ruthlessly. Patton wasn't just advancing. He was smelling blood. The German High Command was informed at noon. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, head of the OKW, was furious. He accused Balck of exaggeration. He refused to believe that the Americans could have mounted such an offensive under current conditions. Keitel infamously said, "The Americans fight by the book. They do not improvise like this." A staff officer later wrote that Balck clenched his jaw at this remark. He knew Patton was not a by-the-book commander. In fact, Patton thrived in situations the Germans assumed were impossible. He improvised constantly. He pushed his staff relentlessly, and he adapted faster than German intelligence could update their reports. Keitel demanded that Balck counterattack immediately and restore the line. Balck explained that he didn't have the units to launch a credible counterattack. Keitel dismissed this. "Find them," he shouted. "Patton must not reach the Saar. If he does, the war in the West is lost." The truth, however, was already evident to the officers in the room. Patton had broken their defensive system so thoroughly that restoring the line was nearly impossible. All they could do was delay him. Throughout the afternoon, German radio traffic revealed growing panic. Units were retreating in disorganized fashion. Commanders were losing contact with their battalions. American reconnaissance units were spotted miles ahead of where German staff believed they should be. Patton's attack was moving too fast for the Germans to accurately map. One intercepted transmission from a German division commander summarized the chaos. "We cannot form a new line because we do not know where the old one is." By late afternoon, the German High Command held an emergency conference in Berlin. The transcripts, later recovered after the war, showed the emotional tone of the meeting. One general slammed his fist on the table, shouting, "Who is leading this American army? How is this possible?" Another responded, "Patton. It must be Patton." A third officer, known for his calm demeanor, said quietly, "If the Americans always had such a commander, the war would already be lost." Hitler was informed shortly afterward. His reaction was explosive. He blamed the retreating units, the commanders, the terrain, even the weather. But he could not bring himself to admit the real problem. The enemy had a commander who was beating Germany at its own style of warfare, fast, aggressive, and unpredictable. Hitler issued one of his infamous stand-fast orders: no retreat, no regrouping, no repositioning. Units were to hold their ground or be court-martialed. Several commanders protested. They argued that a tactical withdrawal was the only way to avoid encirclement. Hitler refused. His rigidness played directly into Patton's hands. Patton excelled at exploiting enemy rigidity. When an enemy held a position stubbornly, Patton maneuvered around it, isolated it, and rendered it irrelevant. When the Germans refused to budge, Patton gained momentum. As German resistance crumbled, more frantic reports arrived. Patton's armor had taken key high ground overlooking the region. Artillery positions were captured before they could be withdrawn. Supply depots were overrun, providing Patton with captured fuel, something the Germans had not even considered possible. One German officer reportedly exclaimed, "He is using our own fuel against us." This detail horrified the high command. They had assumed Patton's advance would stall from lack of fuel. Instead, he moved faster. Late that evening, Balck met with his staff again. A young officer entered the room holding the latest situation report. He hesitated before speaking. "General, the Americans have reached Schadau-Salins." Balck stood up sharply. That town was the last natural barrier before the open routes to the Saar. If Patton held it, the road to Germany would be open. Balck asked the officer, "Is this confirmed?" The officer nodded. "Multiple sources. They are digging in and reinforcing." Balck turned to his staff and said quietly, "We have lost Lorraine." The German High Command spent the night searching for solutions. They redirected units from other sectors, weakened defenses along the West Wall, and even considered pulling divisions from Holland. But nothing could be done fast enough. Patton's breakthrough had come like a thunderstrike. One staff officer later wrote, "It was as if he opened a door we believed locked, and once it opened, we could not close it again." In private conversations, German commanders expressed a mix of respect and fear. General von Manteuffel, one of Germany's best tactical commanders, said, "If Patton had been a German, we would still be in Paris." Another officer added, "He fights with the energy of Guderian and the audacity of Rommel." Even Guderian himself, after reviewing the situation days later, admitted, "Patton is the one Allied commander we underestimated the most. He fights mobile warfare the way it is meant to be fought." Patton's breakthrough in Lorraine created a chain reaction. German defenses contracted, units retreated, entire sectors weakened. The Saar, once considered a fortress region, suddenly looked vulnerable. In the days that followed, the German High Command struggled to understand how Patton had achieved such a rapid victory. Some blamed faulty intelligence. Others blamed low morale. But the most insightful German officers realized the truth. Patton saw the battlefield differently. While other commanders paused, he advanced. While others waited for supplies, he created opportunities. While others accepted the limits of terrain, he ignored them. In the final analysis, German records reveal a stunning admission. One document, found after the war in the OKH archives, stated, "The American Third Army under Patton operates with alarming speed. It appears to act before decisions are fully made. Our defenses cannot react fast enough." Another official war diary contained an even more direct assessment. Patton's actions in Lorraine show that the Americans now possess a commander capable of defeating German mobile warfare. The consequences of this will be felt for the remainder of the war. Years later, German generals writing memoirs continued to discuss Patton's breakthrough. General Balck wrote, "Patton fought with a ferocity and intuition uncommon among his peers. In Lorraine, he achieved operational success where we believed geography guaranteed our advantage. His willingness to attack relentlessly made him one of the most dangerous opponents I ever faced." Even decades after the war, conversations among surviving German officers circled back to that September morning when reports of Patton's breakthrough first arrived. Many remembered the shock. Others remembered the fear. But all remembered the realization that the man leading the American Third Army was not only a threat, but a military genius in his own way. In the end, the German High Command's reaction to Patton's breakthrough in Lorraine revealed their growing recognition that the war was turning, not because of numbers or machines, but because the Allies had finally produced a commander capable of matching Germany's best. Patton's success in Lorraine was not just a tactical victory. It was a psychological blow, a strategic earthquake, and a signal that the German army was facing a commander who would not stop until he reached the heart of their homeland. If this story of speed, audacity, and shattering expectations inspires you, make sure to subscribe for more untold moments from the commanders who shaped history. Your support helps bring these forgotten turning points back to life. Thanks for watching.